With this, we have with a series of webinar from SUSE. This is our last session for today, where we are going to cover on SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP Applications. We have already covered SUSE Storage and SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. And thank you all for being a regular participant and for the sessions. In future, we will definitely be doing more sessions also on SUSE. So thank you once again, and I would hand it over to Rahul and Twinkle from SUSE to take it ahead for today's session. Rahul, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh, and good morning, everybody. I am Rahul Bhandare. I manage the OEM alliances from SUSE. OEM alliances, or rightly we say IHVs, the independent hardware vendors. So quickly, first of all, I'm not a presentation guy. I am a hands-on a field guy. So which is why I would like to make today's session as less of English and more of what is relevant on the field. Some of the slides are not so very standard slides, but I'll make sure that whatever little I know about SAP, I'll try and communicate to you on the SAP, as well as the SUSE Manager, which is a infrastructure management piece or the life cycle piece of it. So quickly brief on my background. I had started my career with SI partner community, and I had been doing pre-sales role. I had spent close to 10 years in this role, maybe one of which is Wipro, where I was doing pre-sales role and solution sizing along SAP. So the reason of giving this background, so I understand exactly what partner feels, what are the partner challenges in the field as far as SAP is concerned. And while I do a little bit on the sizing, why I say a little bit, because that role I've left long back, but I can exactly speak from the SAP perspective. This is the number of users I can arrive of required SAPs, 5 years growth parameters, year-on-year configurations, what is the CPU required to run so many particular SAPs, what is the IOPS requirement, which was relevant in the ECC environment. What is the sizing, how should the landscape look like, what should be the production availability, how many number of applications should be running, or so blah 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 blah. So I come from that background, so feel free in case you have anything on the SAP front also. I spent close to 7 years with HPE doing product management around the mission critical servers portfolio, which included majority of my role was on the SAP, or close to 100% role was on SAP, but it was towards the beginning it was on Unix servers, and later towards the x86 HANA servers. So I am well versed with the OEM sizing solution also, and I had spent close to 3 years with SUSE. So from the software perspective, I can also give a gist of how the landscape should look like, and that is what I will try and see how easy I can make today's presentation. So today's topic, I'll be covering, like I said, SAP and SUSE Manager. SAP, I will also talk about why SUSE is a preferred vendor for SAP, or what is so relevant, why it is relevant in the SAP space. Running a SAP or buying a SAP is like buying a Ferrari car. That is how I would normally start my presentation, and want to give a brief background. You have chosen, a customer chooses to buy a beautiful Ferrari car, very nice, very costly, and takes a lot of time to actually decide, maybe close to a year or so, to decide whether they should buy a Ferrari or not. And once they buy a Ferrari, there are many things which goes after that, buying, procuring the hardware, and deciding the implementation partner, blah blah blah. So when customer has decided to buy a Ferrari car, it is equally important to that Ferrari car cannot be running on a Mumbai road which is full of potholes. It needs a beautiful infrastructure, and that is where the hardware piece of the infrastructure comes into place. But you may have a beautiful Ferrari car and you may have a beautiful infrastructure, but if you don't have a driver who understands and who has driven a Ferrari, it is very difficult to take this combination ahead, and that is where SUSE comes into picture. And SUSE, I say SUSE is a platform of choice, the development of SAP HANA, SAP itself has happened on SUSE platform, and that is where the relevance of the platform comes into picture. So that was a quick brief of what I'm going to cover. So now, before I go to SAP SKU also, while Joel has covered briefly on the SUSE Linux part, I will just quickly cover very 1 or 2 slides on SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, which we say SLES. What is the basic operating system? And then top of it, what SAP SKU from SUSE is all about, because many of times there are questions. I see people talking about why not a regular operating system and why SAP, and that is what the whole intention of it is, so that I can cover and take you to a journey of what SAP is all about, or SUSE Linux Enterprise Server SAP, why it is so integral part of the SAP systems. So quickly on the OS front, this is actually as what was part from SUSE Linux Enterprise 12 onwards. Very important, very small things, but very important. We give you all the choices of hypervisor, whether it is Zen, whether it is KVM, whether it is VMware, whether it is a container or it is a Docker or a Hyper-V. We support and we give you all the choices. We don't say ki you need this, and the relevance of this slide is talking from the SAP perspective also, because many of the cases you will see in the SAP landscape, there are also hypervisor which is there and it is not free, you pay for it, and along with SUSE it is bundled by default, available for you. You can choose. I cannot remove the price of a hypervisor, not I can add the cost to it, but it is by default there for you to use. And I will share some of the SAP references, because after I say Zen and KVM hypervisor which are available, which are free of cost, and you save a lot of money on it, still people come and say, whether do you have references, and I have SAP reference to it. I'll be talking about it in further thing. I also give you choice of all the file system, whether it is ButterFS for the OS, or whether XFS for data, or extended file system, or CFS. All the choices of the hypervisor is there. So why I'm talking about this today? You protect the system. You protect your database by doing a backup. But how do you protect your file system itself? How do you protect your image itself? And that is what SUSE gives, which is by default part of the operating system. So I don't say if you want to run the SAP application, you take this choose. It's SKU. If you want to build a high availability, then you need a cluster. Then you take a SAP for your OSQ for SAP database or SAP HANA. So I don't differentiate. What SUSE believes, whatever is required to run a application, by default that SKU should cater to all the components which are requirement. So if you want to run this cluster, you need a resilient storage, you buy add-on component. No, whatever is required by default part of the operating system is been provided along with the OS. I also give open choice of open source database, which is MariaDB, which is bundled, which is available for the user, whoever buys the OS, which is free of cost, no additional cost. But many of times while I do this session, people come and say, do you need an open source database? And practical scenario, yes, you do need open source sometimes in the scenario. For example, most of your customers, when they buy a OS, when they buy a hardware, when they buy an infrastructure, they are going through a phase. They are actually trying to do a refresh of the hardware, buying new hardware, or refresh of their application, or moving towards a more consolidation scenario from the larger monolithic hardwares to a consolidated fewer hardware. And that time when they move, they still have some homegrown applications. And these homegrown applications are running either on Oracle or a DB2 or a database, which is costlier than the new procurement of the hardware. And with the open source database choice with you, you this customer can actually choose on moving to the open source database, test his homegrown application where it is working, and if it works, he saves a lot of money, which is going to anyways pay to the open source a traditional database vendors. So just to, in a nutshell, if I want to summarize what we give along with OS, all the choices of hypervisor, all the file systems we support, and we also give MariaDB database, which is bundled along with the operating system. Now, like I said, you protect your database by doing a backup, by creating a cluster, by doing hierarchy, all those things. But also, by how do you protect your OS itself? How do you protect your image itself? How do you have, when you take a typical landscape where you have a production server, quality, a development, application environment, running multiple applications and multiple instances, how do you protect those images itself? And by default, we also give a full system rollback option, a part of the operating system, which is free of cost, which means when I am doing a service pack upgrade or I am doing a kernel upgrade, if something happens to the system, I can actually roll back to the last good configuration, or I can roll back to the start. And this is available by default, which is part of the operating system. So the reason of me showing this slide here is this relevance will come when I'm doing a SISA manager slide, and how easy or why this option makes sense in a landscape where a customer is running the application. And while the OS is incidental part of the sale, what OS can bring value to the customer is what I'm trying to tell you. Or because most of the time when I say OS is incidental, people actually don't bother what goes with the OS. But when you as a SI, when you as a value added distributor, when you as a partner goes and talks to the customer and takes this consulting approach, you many a times there are some accounts which are competition, which you can win back based on the features which are available by default part of the operating system. And this is one platform which I can I thought I will give you some key important points where you, if it registers, there this can be small things which are free but can be a game changer for you, winning back certain competition accounts or gaining entry in accounts which is actually with some other SI or vendor. What I also give along with operating system, I also support unattended automated in-place migration. A very big word, but does it require, is it required in the customer scenarios? We have seen most of the customers who run SAP, who run their applications, traditional or any other application, they are not used to do upgrades frequently. They still rely on the older service pack for long time because they are used to a traditional monolithic servers even today. Even there are customers who take pride, I have not rebooted the server for 10 years. It was true in a Unix environment, which was actually a great point. But today, if you're not on the latest service pack, you are prone to so many security threats. And that is where today most of the Linux vendors say you should be on at least on the 6 months older service pack, not more than 6 months. To get the support on the Linux system, 6 months is where you should be. But there are customers who are still on the older version, and what we support them. If there are customers, let's say, who are running on service pack 11 with service pack 3 or 4, he can actually move to SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 12 with service pack 2 without disturbing his application. When I say unattended automated in-place migration, there are also customers who are on service pack 10, SLES 10 with service pack 4, and he can also move to service pack 4 with SUSE Linux Enterprise Server 11. So these are the choices which are available with the customer, which are by default given along with the operating system. Small things, but relevant in the customer scenarios, which comes handy to the customer and important. So I am just taking a life cycle and upgrade part for 12. I will also talk about 15. What Joel spoke last time, 10 years of general availability, which is a very long roadmap as far as Linux is concerned, and 3 years of extended support. Not only that, if the customer is on a general availability, I can also do from general availability, I can go to service pack 1, from GA general to service pack 2, which means I can skip and I can go to the next level. I can again do either one step migration, which is n to n+1, or I can do skip one service pack and move to the service pack next level. So this is what a customer gets a benefit. Now, why I'm talking about this is when you go to the OS front, when you talk about SAP relevant, it will make sense. Generally 6 months, which when I say you should be on the latest service pack to avail all the functionality, features, performance, and as well as the support. With normal SAP, we used to give another 12 months of overlay, which means the customer gets a complete 18 months of support, even if he's on the older service pack. That we had increased to 4.5 years, and that is where, which are the small things but very relevant when you talk about SAP landscape. The customers are not used to actually upgrade their system, do service pack upgrade immediately, and they need a longer support, and that is what SUSE Linux support gives them. Now this is a quick upgrade path, because there are still people who come and say, how do I am on so and so version, and how do I go to next version and next version, and so all the orange which you see is offline upgrade. All the black arrows which you see are the online upgrades. Without disturbing your system, you can do online upgrade. This is the link which I have pasted. Probably when we circulate the slide, you will see this documentation, and which will give you, if customers today on the service pack, it's on general availability with SUSE Linux 12, he can go to service pack 1, he can go to service pack 2, 3, 4, and from there he wants to do, it's online upgrade, he wants to go to 15, he can do offline, and he can do the offline. Does not mean he's cutting off everything. Offline means his application is for time being cut off, and he's still going to 15. Now this is the same with 15 also. We give 10 years of minimum general availability and 3 years of extended, which is 13 years of roadmap for any operating system, which is huge. So this is in nutshell what we spoke about the general or SUSE Linux Enterprise Server. So if I want to quickly summarize, we talked about choice of all the hypervisor, all the OS, we also give MariaDB, which is open source database. We also give support where he can do rollback of full system, which is by default generally available. In Unix, you have to pay for this feature, which is very small feature, but very relevant in terms of keeping the entire system available. When we say about 5 nines of availability, we talk about database being backup, but how you protect your system itself, that it comes very handy. We talked about n+1 upgrade on the service pack and skipping of one service pack and moving to the next service pack. We spoke about 10 years and 3 years of extended, total 13 years of lifespan of the OS. Now this, whatever I spoke, is by default available with SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP application also, but there are certain add-on components. So now everything which you see in green is by default available with the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP application. Whatever you see in the blue are the add-ons to what is not available on the general purpose operating system. And this is the key differentiator when somebody says why regular SLES and why not not regular SLES and why SAP SKU for SAP landscape. This is one quick thing which you need to actually note. So if I talk about the base operating system, what we spoke earlier, just a few minutes back, I spoke extended service pack overlay, which was 6 months, was 18 months. We are talking about with SAP landscape as 4.5 years, because we know customers, these customers are going to be manufacturing customers. These customers are not IT savvy customer, does not have an IT department, does not have a OS admin separate, a storage admin separate, a network admin separate, but IT infrastructure, which was earlier maybe a DTP or organization which was a small IT, is becoming the complete IT staff who will doing the entire landscape. So keeping that in mind, the overlay of service pack is 4.5 years. Customer gets a full benefit of that. Second important point to be noted, you have a specific SAP specific update channel. For SAP landscape, whatever is required, whatever you're running a solution manager, Fury, you're running an application, your DB, that specific update channel is different from the normal SUSE package hub, which is there available with the SUSE operating system. If I talk about ease of deployment, installation wizard is very important. What is it normal cycle in SAP landscape? You order a hardware, you decide a SI, you decide an application vendor or SAP deployment or SAP implementation partner. And when the hardware delivers, the entire thing starts. After the hardware is delivered, the OEM guy comes and does the rack stack. Either he does the OS and the images or the virtualization creating your lungs to the storage, or he assigns SI. The SI comes and he does the OS implementation, or let's say what creates a hypervisor, and top of that he creates the instances for application tier, he creates the OS for database tier. After that, the SAP implementation partner comes and he says, okay, you have done this, but for this particular database, I need this particular service pack, I need this 1, 2, 3 points. What happens then? Again, the SI does the activity as per what the implementation partner has asked. And this cycle takes few days to a week's time. It can take slightly more time. What with SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP Application Installation Wizard, he can actually do the installation of the application while he's doing the installation of his landscape itself. While he's doing the installation of the OS itself, he can do the deployment of the application. So which time which was taking for weeks can reduce to few days or few hours. And that is how easy, or that is what a SUSE Linux Enterprise Server SAP does for the customer. I have some images which are captured. I'm going to showcase that images because seeing is believing, and for me, actually it registers when I see something which I am talking, and that is what I'm trying to showcase to you today, so that it registers and you know why. And when you talk to the customer, you can actually articulate these are the small things which are very important. If the customer is running on a public cloud platform, there are images which are available for them for ease of deployment. But if I talk about performance, HANA, when I talk about HANA today, everything is in memory. When I say everything is in memory, your OS is in memory, your application is in memory, and equally important that the performance should not hamper because the OS is taking more memory or the application is taking memory. And the page cache management actually bifurcates that and helps protect the system, helps protect the performance. I can also do performance tuning, configuration and tuning. There are systems which are not appliances, which are actually built on site, or TDI systems, and I can do performance configuration and tuning on the side using the SAP SKU from SUSE. There are HCWT tools which I can leverage using this. I can do performance benchmarking tuning using this SKU. HA, high availability cluster, is by default built in. So if you take the price of the operating system and you add to a cluster cost, you will see that that price is actually costlier, and your SAP HANA SKU is commercially viable, better option, or cheaper than the regular operating system plus the HA SKU. I also have resource agents for HA, which when you see the scenario, you will know why it is important. While some of my competition talks about one particular scenario of HA or a replication. I talk about all the scenarios available. I talk about specific resource agents available as far as SAP HANA HA is concerned. I can also do OS hardening using this queue. I can also do remote encryption on this. So in nutshell, while you see what is green, which is a regular OS, these are small things, very powerful features, which translates to benefits for the customers, very useful. Most of the time, I'm sure when I was also with the SI doing SAP sizing, doing pre-sales on the OS front, I lacked this information. I was a hardware vendor. I say my system is so beautiful, infrastructure is so beautiful. You are taken a Ferrari, my infrastructure, but what drives that Ferrari is the driver, and that is what we give customer a peace of mind when he chooses the SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP's queue. So this is the same block diagram what we spoke, 18 months to 4.5 years of grace period. You talk about installation period, we spoke about HA. Antivirus, CLAM antivirus is also by default part of the operating system, which is there. Apart from what we talk about the specific update channel, we talk about firewall and stuff like that. So if I want to again summarize, using installation wizard, I can do the complete HANA TDI installation. I can do a HA deployment using the installation wizard. When I say HA deployment, it is so easy. Normally you run scripts, you run commands when you use this tool and create a HA. And when I say this so easy, so beautiful, I had seen it personally, and that's the reason why I like this particular things. We have an Intel lab where in Bangalore on all the SUSE products, we run this installation script. We can showcase you how easy it is to deploy your cluster using the installation wizard. Just create a production server 2, how it fails over, falls back using the tools. So simple, very, and I had seen customers whom we showed this demo, who want to see this demo for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and end up the whole day sitting and say, okay, no, let me check what this installation wizard does, 1, 2, 3 steps. How about the SUSE managers do 1, 2, 3, 4. So using the installation wizard, I can show its demo lab is available. You can speak to Twinkle. You can take the advantage. If you need some demos to be shown to your customers, most welcome. You can see these demos. Like I said, using the installation wizard, I can also do firewall installation. I can do this auto configuration, and I can also do the firewall scenarios, which is available. For example, you had already heard internal, external, DMZ, but with SAP HANA, there are 9 firewall scenarios which are there, which we can do auto configuration. We can replicate all the 9 firewall scenarios while you are doing the installation of your OS itself. You can deploy this. You can refer to multiple SAP nodes, find out what are worst practices 1, 2, 3, or these are the things which are already available in this queue itself. You can use them. So I spoke about the HANA replication resource agent, HANA HA components. I support all the scenarios. When I say all the scenarios, for example, performance optimize, which means you have production server 1 and you need complete availability of the system. You have similar server failover, and this server is only doing the failover job, which is not doing anything. So which is a performance optimize. I support performance optimize. Most of the people do, which is the active. I also support the cost optimize scenario, which means your production server 1 can be active, and the second node can be running your quality and development environment, which is active. In case of the primary server fails, your entire load can be shifted to the secondary server, which is active for quality and development, goes down and brings up the production server on the fly on this system. So I support the cost optimized scenario also, which is as per SAP deployment. I also support the chain topology. I can do multiple components on the single server without a virtualization, and I can do A to B and B to C kind of topology, which is very relevant in certain customer scenarios. I of late remember VOCAD, which I had done similar, which is performance optimized, which is A to B, and then this system should be available under C, and it should be able to roll back to the good configuration. So those scripts, everything is available. We support this scenario also. We also support a scale out scenario where your performance requirement is there, and we, in nutshell, I support cost optimized, I support performance optimized, scale out, or any kind of topology which is available. Ask my competition, there is only one scenario, which is one way application, and using HANA, that is what only available along with them. More importantly, we are in the third or fourth or fifth generation of clusters. We were the first people to introduce this kind of scenarios on our Linux machines. Prior to that, people used to buy a third-party tool for additional scenarios on this. We also support the NVDIMM, which helps in the faster recovery. So if I want to, this is the English slide, but if I want to actually explain this slide in a layman's language, if you go back to the older SAP deployments, which was the ECC, and we compare that with HANA, which is there, the ECC deployment, traditional application was 60% of the load or 70% of the load, and 30% load was database. Database, which was on the storage, has to talk to the storage controller, go to IO bus, then it has to talk to the DRAM, then it has to go to L3, L2, L1, and finally to CPU, which means data which was lying on the fifth hop. Two things, it was row based. Second, it was on the fifth hop, which means if you want some real-time information, real-time analysis, you are not able to do with a traditional ECC environment. Now with SAP HANA, the data which was on the fifth hop is on the DRAM, which means DRAM to L3 to L2 to L1 to CPU. Your data, your analytics is faster. You get the real-time information of your system. Your data which was row-based has been converted to column-based. Still, the data which was there on the storage comes to DRAM. Everything in the DRAM, your log and the data volumes on the persistent storage. What is the advantage vis-a-vis ECC? Faster performance is faster, everything is in memory, but the workload has changed. Close to 60% is on the database tier, and close to 40% is on the application tier. Since your 60% data is in the memory, what happens in case of unplanned downtime? If your system goes down, to bring back that system takes a lot of time, because everything is in the memory, and memory DRAM is volatile in nature. Everything which was on the memory gets flushed back to the disk, and when you reboot the system, whatever is in the disk comes back to the memory, and it takes a lot of time. Imagine your data is larger in size. We have done this performance last year. We were the first people who bought these features on the operating system. 6 terabytes. For the 6 terabytes, we have done we have a slide which is available, which have white paper which is available. For 6 terabytes of database, it takes 45 minutes to bring back the SAP system, and that 45 minutes is a downtime, or which is unplanned, and this 45 minutes is a time where your business is at risk. If your 45 minutes is a business loss, with NVDIMM support, we bought this 45 minutes time to 3 minutes, 4 minutes flat. 1 minute to stop and 2.5 minutes to actually bring back the system. And we have this demo available in Intel Lab in Bangalore. You feel free to use this. We can showcase this demo. It's a compelling value proposition for the customers. Guess what? While people talk about it, we can showcase it in the system in our lab. So like I said earlier, in a SAP landscape, you have database, you have application tier, you need operating system, you also bring a virtualization tier, which is you pay for a virtualization software and you get it. And this slide actually talks about 1 to 3 scenarios in SAP landscape which are relevant. This video is from Martin, a Senior Vice President from SAP SE Solution Engineering. There is also a video which is available here. I have shared a link which you can go and see. He talks about all the features of SUSE Linux and why SUSE Linux is so integral part, or he talks about the development platform for SAP HANA is SUSE Linux. The development platform for HANA Enterprise Cloud is SUSE Linux. He talks about 5 nines of availability with HA. He talks about live patching, which Joel spoke last time. He talks about 6,600 servers, 12,000 CPUs, and 16,000 virtual machines running on SUSE hypervisor. So many of time people come and say, okay, I have bought this hypervisor. We say you can use SUSE native hypervisor Zen or KVM, which is available, which is free of cost. People still go and ask references. Do you have references whether it works? And this is a slightly older slide, 2 years back slide, which is there. This 16,000 virtual machines has grown to 30,000 virtual machines, and those running on SUSE hypervisor. You need a bigger reference than HANA SAP itself. So this is the scenario, a reference case study, a video which is available. You can go and watch. But this gives you confidence in a SAP landscape, why SUSE is so relevant, why it is so integral part of the SAP system. This is the reference. I have put the SAP notes over here below, and this talks about running your SAP HANA on KVM environment. In nutshell, this is the English slide again, but we say 70% of SAP applications worldwide run on SUSE. 100% of the B1 application on SUSE. 90% worldwide installation of HANA is on SUSE, but in India it is 99.9. And this is the reality. And this is where, while we talk about the figures, it is equally important to understand why it is 99.9 or why such a high, why we are so integral part of the SAP. So I spoke about the regular OS features. I spoke about what are so different, why SAP SKU, what is the differentiator between regular OS and the SAP, what are the add-ons, and how easy it is. So when I spoke to you, I have also put some snapshots, because seeing is believing. And this is a snapshot of the installation wizard, how it looks like. I have put a link below, which is the documentation which is available for you to see. And everything I put from this documentation a link. So this is the basic installation wizard, how it looks. I can do SUSE Linux Enterprise installation. While doing the OS, I can do the installation of the SAP application itself. Now it talks about English. It talks about the SAP application, which has been chosen over here. Post that, we go to registration. We go to SUSE customer center portal, provide an email address, registration code. Go next. The system also suggests, when you run this config, it also suggests the partitions. What are the partitions? If you're running a development, what is the required size, what it should look like, and it will also suggest, or you can choose your own, but it also give you guidance of partition. That minute details, which a normally engineer goes and looks for the information, is by default available as per the best practices. I can look at the SAP notes, and that particular note wise, how should system look like, I can deploy while doing the installation of the OS itself. Like I said, we can also do a firewall installation. I can do automation. I can also create the firewall using the installation wizard. Now, this screen shows the SAP installation wizard, from where to choose the directory, and the setup starts, which is the CID, and then the SAP HANA installation.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. I have a question regarding before installing the SAP application. is there any prerequisites required, or it will take automatically?
Just hold on for your question. We'll take it
Okay.
once we complete this slide. Prerequisite is there. The documentation slide which I shared with you has got all the details, but I will let the pre-sales talk about it. What Ubuntu, if you want specific pre-sale things, what is the requirement, then possibly he can connect. But everything which is required is by default there in this documentation guide.
Means during installation, if I will select that SUSE SAP installation, so by default it will take the prerequisite, or I have to means do it manually. My question is that.
This is Joel here. Okay, I'll take your question towards the end of it. Okay, so I'll answer your question towards the end of the session. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Joel. Thanks. Yes. So this is again the slide, and we like we said SAP. So I have just put this slide from the perspective of understanding how simple it is, what are the advantages, how time which was taking from weeks can reduce, and how customers' life it made easy using some of the tools which are available on the SAP SKU itself. Now we'll talk about SUSE Manager. SUSE Manager is one single component, one lifecycle tool which is relevant in the in any landscape for that matter. For example, before I start, let us take one example of a landscape. Let's say you have SAP landscape. Let's say customer has got SAP landscape. He has got his traditional landscape. Let's say he has got production server. He has got quality development server. He has got application servers which are running virtualization, and he has got virtual instances on top of which you have got application instances. Let's say in SAP landscape, if I want to talk about only on the SAP landscape itself, app 1, app 2, production app, quality app, development app, Fiori, solution manager, your PO, BO, etc. 15-20 instances are there. You have also a traditional landscape which is customer is holding, which is running various other Linux instances. Now, how do he manage? How do we see that everything is up to date? If I am talking about 20 instances also, how do you see that everything on the server is up to date? How do he manage those servers? Actually, somewhere we had a slide. If you go back to some old slides and you see, most of the errors are human errors. 70% are human errors. And if you want to maintain such a complex system, it is humanly impossible or very difficult for a system admin to do this job. A SUSE manager actually makes system admin's life easy. Whether it is a physical environment, whether it is a virtual environment, whether his systems are or his instances on the cloud. Using SUSE manager, he can manage everything from one single pane of glass. Not only that, if he has got Linux distributions, or he has got SUSE, he has got Red Hat in his environment, instances in environment, he has got other open source Linux softwares. I can manage everything from one single pane of glass using SUSE manager. So if I want to actually talk from the perspective is, I can do provisioning, I can do package management, I can do patch management, I can do configuration management, I can do redeployment, I can do asset management. These are the normal things which are required in the landscape, whether I'm talking from the compliance perspective, whether I'm talking from the security perspective, I'm talking from the health monitoring perspective. These are the scenarios which exist in the landscape, very difficult, humanly impossible to manage by a system admin. And everything which you can see here can be automated using SUSE manager. Now I can reduce the complexity, I can ensure everything is compliant, and I can manage the multiple distributions of Linux using a single tool. I have a chalk talk which is there about a small video which talks about this, which is a 3-minute video. Now I can also ensure compliance. How do I go, I see common vulnerability database, then I go to that, apply that, see that patch, verify that patch, identify, apply those patch. All those things are manual, but I can do that everything using SUSE Manager from one single pane of glass. I can also talk about the scenario where I have a SUSE Manager, when I can manage the entire HO, one of the location. Not only that, using a proxy, I can manage from one single location. I can manage the other locations, maybe in different geographical locations, and I can do everything which I'm going to talk about from one single tool. It's a very small tool, very difficult to talk in terms of English, highly impossible to visualize if you're don't know the scenario, but very, if you see the demo of this, if you see the tool in practical, it is 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and you can keep on seeing the POC. And every time I had seen a customer, I had seen a system admin looking at this tool, he's so excited how his life can become easy. And we have practical scenarios where customer has got SAP landscape and SAP. I have practical scenarios where he has got mixed and many of Red Hat instances, and I can manage all those things from a single pane of glass. So whether those systems are running multiple hypervisors, whatever kind of hypervisor, whatever kind of hardware which is there, which is physical or virtual or in the cloud, everything I can manage from single pane of glass. Now, like I said, very difficult to talk about SUSE Manager, very difficult to visualize it. But the moment you see this as a dashboard, then it becomes relevant for you how easy a customer life can be. For example, if I'm talking about a dashboard overview, I can see the task, what are the systems which require to reboot, what is my overall system look, what are the keys which I can manage, what are the most critical patches, what are the most recent schedule action. I can see all the system information. I can see the images which are there, which I can roll out to multiple hundreds of systems at a time. I can do a patch management for hundreds and thousands of systems from one single pane of glass. I can see what all softwares are available on where. I can see the audit part. I can do a configuration management and so and so. This is one example of the audits where I can actually see which are the systems which are affected, how many systems are affected, which are exclamation mark, how many system, at least one patch is available to be assigned to the channel. I can see which are the systems which are not affected over here and which are patched systems. So everything on, if I have multiple servers, multiple instances running, and I want to maintain those servers, maintain those instances, I can maintain from one single pane of glass. This is just as 1 or 2 slides on the SUSE Manager, which I thought I can also, this is a dashboard, I could see the system level, I can see the network part, I can see the disk usage. This is a Grafana dashboard which is there. I can see the cores, I can see the memory, I can see the storage, I can see everything from one single pane of glass. Now the same thing which I spoke earlier, if I take example of one of the systems for which I was doing server pack or kernel upgrade, if it fails, if it successes, it carries on. If it fails, I can show a demo. I have a demo, like I said, a demo lab available along with Intel in Bangalore. I can show this feature where I can show if this is what happens to the system, how it goes and roll back to the large good configuration, or I can show him customer roll back to the previous good configuration. I can show example of doing a live patching of systems from one single pane of glass from SUSE Manager. So if I want to summarize, a single tool which can manage the systems which are not only physical, not only virtual, but also on cloud. It can manage all the Linux distributions, all the Linux, whether it is SUSE, whether it is Red Hat, whether it is Ubuntu, whether anything which is there from one single pane of glass. If I want to overall summarize, this is a SUSE software-defined infrastructure stack. If I talk about, since I spoke about SAP, whether it is SAP B1, whether it is SAP HANA, whether it is on the cloud, whether it is SAP HANA S4, whether it is Data Hub, which is runs on the container platform, when there's Leonardo analytics piece of that. I support all the things, whether it is traditional, monolithic, cloud, cloud native, cloud ready, everything I can support. So if I want to look, you want to look at the stack, the physical layer, all the OEMs, whether Dell, HP, IBM, Cisco, everything, whatever vendor on the physical we support. It's a multimodal OS. I support everything, whether it is x86, whether it is ARM, whether it is Power, everything, one single OS. Whether it is storage, the software defined piece I support here, whether it is compute, the native hypervisors, whether it is on the software defined networking piece, whether managing, whether I'm talking about the container platform on which Data Hub Leonardo can run, I support SUSE container platform, which is there, the cloud application delivery piece, whether I'm talking about this running those on the cloud platform, cloud images, whether I'm running out talking about the SUSE, and lastly the SUSE Manager Lifecycle Agent. Using this, I can manage all of that from single pane of glass. So if I want to the broad ecosystem, all the OEMs which you can see, all the cloud service providers, hyperscaler, all everything we support end to end. That's all from my side, which I have covered. So in a nutshell, basic OS, SLES for SAP, SUSE Manager, these are the topics which we covered. I am done. Joel or team, if you have any questions, possibly you can shoot.
I think Debashish, this is Joel here. You asked a question about the prerequisites, right? So the prerequisites, when you say, are mentioned in the SAP notes, etc. So when you're going to deploy the OS, you will have an installation wizard. Of course, you will have to do those configurations for the first time. And if you want to replicate the same thing, you can probably create or generate an AutoYast file or a kicker file for the second installation. Or if you have SUSE Manager with you, then you can probably replicate the same across as well. So you have an easy way of installing OS, configure the hard disk partitions, get an installation wizard, with the help of which you can deploy the SAP application or HANA. And post that, you'll have to follow the SAP notes. To do that configuration, you'll probably make the changes with SAP Tune, etc. to configure your systems accordingly. That's how it is.
Joel, I'll add up whatever you said. You spoke about what are the prerequisites, how do we know what are the prerequisites? So it was more of, I please don't mind, I thought it was more of a theoretical question. But when I say prerequisite, when I do SAP sizing, SAP itself is a big animal. When I say SAP, what are the 1, 2, 3 things, and how do you arrive at the hardware? And then when you arrive at the hardware, then you talk about the application getting deployment. For example, I'm talking about today's scenario. If I am talking about a mid-sized customer who is talking about 200, 300 users, then I will say for 200, 300 users, even if I say how many concurrent users and that, and I talk about, yesterday we used to talk 60 SAPs, but we're talking for 100 SAPs today. 100 SAPs, 100 multiplied by, let's say 300, is 30,000 SAPs. Now for 30,000 SAPs, how many concurrent users and stuff like that. So 30,000 SAPs today, it's like I said, on the application tier, it is only 40% of the load. What is going on? It's on the database, which is a 60% of the load. When I say database, now it is no relevance when we talk about the number of SAPs. It is more on the database size, which is there, which is, I will say, smallest of them, which is 128 GB. 120 GB is no longer seen. Let's say 256 GB. Let's say 1.5 TB. Let's say 3 TB. Now this is a prerequisite which comes. Now when I say 3 TB is my production data, my production data is 3 TB. To run that 3 TB, what is the requirement? What is the prerequisite? I need 3 TB of memory. What is the size? 3 TB. So to run that 3 TB, my log volume is 1x. my data volume is 3x. So this is a storage capacity drives which I needed. So these are the prerequisites. These prerequisites are met while doing the sizing of the solution itself. That is where the hardware comes into picture with this prerequisite. Now on the application tier, I have maybe 20 applications. For these 20 applications, I need for app, I need, let's say, 32 GB. Let's say I need for production, I need 64 GB. Application tier, and I'm not talking about a database. Database is 3 TB. For solution manager, I need, let's say, 64 GB or 32 GB, depends upon whatever sizing. So these are the prerequisite in terms of, let's say, 2 application servers which will run 20 instances. For this, I need maybe 512 GB of system to run so many VMs. Actually require 256 GB, but 100% availability wise, I need 512 GB so that one server fails, the entire application load should fail on the second server. So the 512 GB 2 servers. So these are the prerequisites which are already met. Once you have this prerequisite, then the installation visit comes. Then you talk to the application vendor. Okay, for this 6 TB, 3 TB of production data, what is that you need? That is where the installation wizard comes. Okay, for this application database, I need this particular SAP node deployment which should happen, and that can happen while you are doing the SAP installation, and that is where the overall scenario comes. Hope I have answered your question apart from what Joel spoke.
Yes, okay, fine.
Well, you can see any other questions.
One more question, sir, I am having.
Okay.
For configuring SUSE manager, it will be provided by same subscription repository, or we have to install it from any source or from other repo, or any other licenses required for SUSE manager, for configuring SUSE manager?
Joel, what do you?
The SUSE manager is a separate product. Okay, you need to procure it in order to have it as part of the solution. Okay, SUSE manager is a completely different installation. When you have a SUSE manager installed, then you can probably manage anything and everything that the customer has procured as part of SUSE solution. Okay, that could be a regular SLES, that could be SLES for SAP. You can do all the needful that was explained by Rahul earlier when it comes to SUSE manager.
As per it is confirmed that SUSE manager, okay, we can manage. Suppose I am having many VMs, okay, where some enterprise Linux are there, Red Hat is there, Ubuntu is there. I'm having some Windows operating system is also installed. Is it possible to patch management for Windows operating system for any VMs from SUSE manager?
No, Devashi, it's not like that. We do not manage Windows. Windows is a separately different kind of an architecture. We help you do all the needful for your Red Hat, for your CentOS, your Ubuntu, and all the SUSE solutions. With a little bit of customization, if a customer has SUSE SCOM with them, Centers Operation Management, Services Center, whatever they call it, you can probably integrate SUSE Manager into that dashboard. So from one single dashboard, then you can push the necessary into the Linux environment as well. So that is how it is, but you cannot manage Windows from SUSE Manager.
Okay. Suppose in a platform where I am using SUSE as well as Red Hat. Okay. So in Red Hat for subscription and patch management, I am using satellite server. So if I will go with SUSE Manager, how it will be more means beneficial for me?
It's very simple. Nah? If you have already you've got a satellite, okay, satellite only does your Red Hat, isn't it? Now, if a customer has a satellite and if he's got also Red Hat, he's also got CentOS, satellite will not be able to do it for you from CentOS point of view. When you have a SUSE manager, you can avoid the cost for satellite and then go on supporting it.
I'm talking about Red Hat.
Yeah. Yes, I'm talking about Red Hat as well. So from Red Hat, you will manage using satellite. So if you take a SUSE manager, you will avoid the satellite and you can directly manage Red Hat machines, whether it is physical, VM, or in cloud, from SUSE manager. Because SUSE manager will then connect to your CDN with the active subscription that you have and get all the repositories downloaded into the server.
Okay, means the subscription can also be managed by SUSE Manager, right?
You are managing the systems, not the subscriptions.
Okay, but through satellite server we used to means provide the subscription also. I'm talking about that.
Yeah, without subscriptions, you will not get the access to the repositories, right, Debashish?
Okay.
Yeah. So the point here is, when you are using SUSE Manager, it is the same thing. Just take away the picture of satellite out. You will have one tool to manage your Red Hat. You will have one tool to manage other Linux distros as well. Okay. So you save cost. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. You can manage with one single tool.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So Mansi Joshi, yeah, just 1 minute. Mansi Joshi has asked a question regarding which team to approach if the customer are using major SAP HANA and IBM. Well, you can approach the India team. There is Akshat who looks into West. There is Karmendra who looks into North. There is Prashant who looks into South. Twinkle is the one who is looking after iValue. So you can reach out to Twinkle and she can align you accordingly. Or you can reach out to any one of us. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can just reach out to any one of us. We will align you with the right person within the team. Any other questions?
Joel, I think there's no question right
Yeah,
now.
the customer side. Okay, probably every customer who is looking into SAP, they will have an SAP basis team. So that's where you will probably reach out to. But then on the sales point of view, if you really have more questions, I would suggest you to connect with our sales team. They would be able to guide you furthermore. So Mansi, you can drop me an email. I'm just sending you my email on the chat itself, so that you can send me an email. I can loop you with the concerned people, so that they can connect you with the appropriate team. So any other questions on what Rahul has spoken or whatever we have spoken in the 3 different sessions? You are most welcome to ask. I'll give another few minutes. You can post your questions in the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask as well. Well, since we have no questions, let me, before I hand it over to Twinkle and sort of, see, this is just the beginning of the 3 sessions we have done. I mean, we understand that it may be too much of an information overload, or it may be things which you may have understood, some you may have not understood. It's all fine. Any given day, if you want to know more, you have my email address. You can reach out to me. I can assist you guys, talk to you, probably understand what is your questions and etc. And accordingly loop you with the necessary team within the India force that we have, and we can take it from there. So if you are discussing on any of the opportunities where you think SUSE could be a fit and you need our help, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will be more than happy to be there by your side. Okay. So with this, Rahul, thank you so much for your time and for your presentation. It was really helpful. Saurabh, over to you.
Thank you, Joel and Rahul.
Thanks.